The rain poured relentlessly on the night 7-year-old Lila Hart was abandoned. Lila Hart sat hunched on the curb outside a 24-hour gas station, hugging her backpack to her chest like a lifeline. Her knees were scraped, her shoes had holes, and her only companion was a threadbare stuffed rabbit with one button eye, Mr. Hops. Her mother, Mary Ann Hart, had kissed her on the forehead hours earlier and said, "Just wait here a few minutes, sweetheart. Mommy will be right back. I promise." There had been a smile on her face, but it was too quick, too shaky. That had been at least 4 hours ago. Lila's stomach growled. Her hands trembled not just from the cold, but from something deeper, heavier. The kind of fear that lingers after the hope has gone quiet. She kept glancing toward the road, hoping to see her mother's rusty red sedan pull into the lot. But only strangers passed. Headlights cut through the fog. Tires splashed through puddles. No one looked at her. No one stopped. The gas station clerk, a kind-eyed older man named Benny, finally noticed how long she'd been sitting there. He stepped out, handing her a styrofoam cup of hot chocolate. "You okay, honey?" he asked gently. Lila forced a nod. "My mom's just running an errand." But Benny had seen this before. He lingered for a moment, then went back inside, watching through the window. It was nearly dawn when a sleek black town car rolled into the station. It didn't belong here. It gleamed under the streetlights like a polished diamond in the dirt. The door opened, and out stepped Victor Kensington, billionaire tech mogul, business genius, and the kind of man people only whispered about. He had just wrapped up a meeting with global investors and was driving himself home for once, needing space to think. But what he saw made him slam the brakes harder than any deal ever had. A tiny girl curled up on the curb, arms wrapped around a stuffed rabbit, her breath misting in the cold. He watched her for a moment. Something twisted in his chest. She looked so much like Claire, his younger sister gone since childhood. Victor Kensington didn't usually stop for anyone, but this time he did. He approached slowly, his deep voice breaking the silence. "Are you alone?" Lila looked up, her eyes huge and glassy with unshed tears. "My mom said she'd come back, but she didn't." Victor stared at her. The truth hit him like a punch. She'd been left, abandoned. He should have called the authorities. He should have walked away. Instead, he opened the car door. "Get in." The ride to Victor's penthouse was silent, except for the occasional sniffle from the back seat. Lila clutched Mr. Hops, her wide eyes scanning the luxurious interior as if it might disappear. Victor's home was a marvel of architecture 40 floors up, all glass walls and sharp lines. It felt cold, like a museum. But it was safe, clean, quiet, and it didn't smell like smoke and sadness. He led her inside without a word, called his housekeeper, Maria, to prepare a room, and instructed his private chef to make pancakes. Then, finally, he knelt in front of Lila. "I'm not going to ask you a bunch of questions tonight," he said, "but you're safe now. Understand?" Lila nodded slowly. Then, in a whisper, "Are you going to send me to a home?" Victor hesitated. He had no experience with children, none. But there was something in her voice, a kind of emptiness he recognized. The kind of emptiness only someone who's been discarded could understand. "No," he said at last. "Not unless that's what you want." She didn't reply. But for the first time in hours, her shoulders relaxed. Over the next few weeks, Victor arranged everything. He hired a child psychologist, enrolled Lila in one of the city's most elite private schools, and brought in personal tutors to help her catch up. He made it clear she didn't owe him anything, but he would not tolerate lies or drama. He didn't coddle her, but he didn't ignore her either. And slowly, Lila began to thaw. She learned to play the piano, devoured books, and excelled in math and science. She started speaking in full paragraphs, challenging Victor at dinner, asking about algorithms and artificial intelligence. She picked up French just because it sounded pretty and learned coding, just to see if she could. One night, as they sat in his study reviewing her school project, she asked quietly, "Why did you help me?" Victor looked at her for a long time. "Because your mother made a choice, and so did I." He never said the words father or adoption, but Lila didn't need them. She had something more powerful: consistency, safety, a man who showed up and kept showing up. By the time Lila turned 22, she was everything Victor could have hoped for and more. She wore power suits like armor, gave TED Talks on AI ethics, and sat on the board of his foundation. People in the business world whispered that she would be his successor. Some called her Lila Kensington, even though it wasn't legal. She had it all: intelligence, poise, confidence. But one thing remained unresolved: her past. That thread unraveled one spring evening at a charity gala she organized for underprivileged youth. The ballroom glittered. Waiters passed champagne, and across the crowd, a figure stood frozen by the doors. Lila's breath caught. It was her, Marianne Hart. She was older now, her hair dull and streaked with gray, her figure worn by time and regret. But the eyes, the same hazel eyes Lila saw in the mirror, were unmistakable. "Lila," Marianne whispered, stepping closer. "My baby." The room faded. Lila stood paralyzed, heart thudding in her ears. The last time she'd seen this woman, she'd been left outside a gas station with a stuffed rabbit and a lie. Victor was suddenly beside her, calm but alert, one hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to talk to her." But Lila raised a hand. She needed to know. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Marianne's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared. I was poor. I thought someone else could give you a better life. I couldn't do it alone." Lila's lips curled in a bitter smile. "So you just left me?" Then came the twist. "I have a son," Marianne said. "Your brother. He's sick. We need help. A donor. Maybe you." Victor didn't waste time. Within 48 hours, his private investigators unearthed the truth. Marianne hadn't been scared. She'd been reckless, running with the wrong crowd. She hadn't left Lila for her own good. She had sold her through a black market adoption scheme that fell apart when the buyers realized she'd lied about the father's identity. Panicked, Marianne had dumped Lila at the gas station and vanished. As for the sick brother, there was no illness, no donor, just debt collectors and desperation. Marianne had remarried and lived in a rundown neighborhood on the edge of the city. Her new husband had a criminal record. Her story was a con. Victor handed Lila the file with shaking hands. "I didn't want you to see this." But Lila read every page. "She didn't come for me," she said at last. "She came for my name." Victor didn't reply, but his silence was louder than words. Lila didn't cry when Marianne arrived at Victor's office. She was sitting behind his desk, the city lights sprawling behind her like a kingdom. Marianne stood across from her, wringing her hands. "I messed up," Marianne said through sobs, "but I'm still your mother." Lila met her eyes, her voice calm and even. "You were, but then you left." "I was young. I was scared." "So was I," Lila snapped. "And I waited for you. I waited until the sky turned gray and my fingers went numb. And you never came back." Marianne collapsed into a chair, sobbing. "Please, I have nothing left." Stability. Victor entered quietly and placed a plane ticket on the desk beside her. Paris. A tech summit, a fresh start, and an escape from ghosts. "You're not obligated to stay," he said softly. Lila stood. She didn't even glance back at Marianne. As her private jet soared over the city, she looked down at the skyline. The past didn't own her. The pain didn't define her. She wasn't that little girl on the curb anymore. She was Lila Kensington, and her future was her own. Paris was a city of beauty, but also of masks. Lila stepped into her new role with calculated grace. Victor had partnered with a European tech firm, and she was overseeing the merger. The Kensington name opened doors, but it was her intellect that earned her respect. Still, even amid late-night meetings and glittering soirees, something gnawed at her. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. At first, it was little things. A man in a gray coat who always seemed to be across the street. A van parked too long outside her hotel. Phone calls that ended in silence. She brushed it off until one night, her hotel room was broken into. Nothing was stolen. Only her childhood stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hops, was taken from her dresser. Shaken, Lila contacted Victor. Within an hour, a private cybersecurity team was in Paris. They swept her devices and found something chill in her phone had been cloned. Someone was tracking her movements, her messages, even her banking activity. Whoever it was had access to everything. Then, a message arrived, digitally masked and sent through encrypted tunnels. Your father lied to you. Come home if you want the truth. It wasn't signed. Victor denied any knowledge when she confronted him via video call. His face was unreadable. There are people who would do anything to manipulate you. Don't listen. But Lila couldn't let it go. She returned to New York 2 days later unannounced. Victor wasn't home when she arrived at the Penthouse, but his study door, always locked, had been left slightly ajar. Lila hesitated, then stepped inside. The room was dim, filled with rows of books and rare artifacts. A framed photo sat on the desk, Victor, young and smiling, with a woman who looked shockingly like Lila. She wasn't Marianne. In a hidden drawer, she found more. Letters, old newspaper clippings, and a birth certificate. Name, Claire Hart Kensington. Mother, Marianne Hart. Father, Victor Kensington. Lila's world collapsed. Claire had been her mother's first daughter, her half-sister. Victor had known all along. When Victor returned, Lila was waiting. You knew, she said, holding up the photo. Claire was your daughter, my sister. Victor didn't flinch. She died at 14. Your mother ran off with her and refused to let me claim custody. You took me in because I reminded you of her. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? He looked tired, older than she'd ever seen him. Because you would have hated me for not saving her. I still might. Before Lila could process the betrayal, news broke that shocked the business world. Victor Kensington was being investigated for financial fraud. Anonymous sources claimed he had laundered millions through shell companies, one of which had recently been tied to Marianne Hart. Lila felt the floor beneath her give way. Her biological mother had partnered with someone inside Victor's company. She was trying to destroy him from the inside. And worse, a board member had helped her. The betrayal was complete. Lila didn't sleep. She worked around the clock, poring over contracts, shell company trails, and emails. Eventually, the truth came out. Victor had unknowingly hired a man named Louis Crane, Marianne's second husband, as head of European development. Louis had siphoned funds through fake vendors, setting Victor up for ruin. Warrants were issued. But Marianne vanished again, this time with millions. Victor faced indictment. And Lila? She was asked by the board to take over temporarily. It was the power she had always dreamed of. And it felt like ashes. Weeks later, Lila tracked Marianne to a remote property in Croatia. With the help of Interpol and private security, she arranged a confrontation. Marianne was thinner, eyes darting like a cornered animal. "I did it for you," she said. Lila didn't blink. "You did it for yourself. You've always done it for yourself. You're rich now. You can make this go away." "I could," Lila said, stepping aside as officers closed in. "But I won't." As Marianne was dragged away, she screamed, "I gave you life." Lila whispered, "And I reclaimed it." Back in New York, Victor stepped down from public life, retreating into quiet seclusion. His name was tarnished, but the empire survived because Lila took the reins. She restructured the board, fired those who had betrayed them, launched new initiatives in education and justice reform, and finally, legally changed her name, Lila Claire Kensington. Sometimes, late at night, she thought about that curb, the cold, the silence, the wondering. She still kept Mr. Hops recovered during the raid in Croatia. She still loved the view from the penthouse. But she no longer waited to be chosen. She chose herself, and the world followed.